Welcome, everybody. This is The Second Opinion. We're a sports medicine podcast. I'm here with my good friend. You guys all know him.
Dustin Glass.
I'm Dr. Dokel, and we were just talking before we hit record about the NFL Combine and how our weeks have been and things of that sort. But Dustin, before we jump into the Combine talk, what's the latest with you? You said the weather's a little crazy.
Yeah, we were just talking.
Days.
Yeah, I mean, all week, or it started last week. We had some crazy weather. I mean, even here in Mission Viejo, one of my buddies posted a video from his front door, and going down the driveway and the street, it was just sheets of ice. And my patients were coming in, and a couple of them sent in videos because they were late to the appointments, and they were saying weather's bad. And I'm like, yeah, I know it's bad. But she was like, no, the freeway, people are stopped on the freeway because it's flooding right now, and people are having to go around. I'm like, man. And then she sent a video, and it was just pure hailstorm going on for like 10 minutes. And out my office, it was raining, but it was sunny. So it was kind of like that tropical Hawaiian, weather. And I'm like, okay. And then I got home, and yeah, I saw on Twitter, one of my buddies posted from his house in Mission, like I was saying, and it's just sheets of ice going down the gutter. And I was like, man, that's weird, right? And then today it was thundering at my office again, light sun and raining just for like 10, 20 minutes. Driving home, the clouds over the hills I was telling you, we live kind of in a canyon, and the clouds were weird. It was just really stormy looking. You could see the lines of the rain coming through, and then sure enough, it just all let out and started hailing again. I got a video. I was showing my daughter in Tennessee. I'm like, what's going on with SoCal? Yeah. I mean, it's just pouring. So it's kind of interesting. But then you said, 45 minutes an hour down, nothing. So
yeah, I mean, I'm down here in San Diego, and yeah, it was a little bit windy. The weather looked a little like stormy, but it didn't storm. And did you have any hint that it was going to be that way, or was it out of nowhere?
No. So my only hints are, and it's kind of funny, my and you might appreciate this actually. My mom's side all comes from farm stock from Nebraska. And growing up, my grandpa would always say, he could tell when it was going to rain based on the moon. And so,
halo.
Well, it's like when the moon, like it's a half moon, but like upside down, basically like a bowl, and it's holding the water in. That's what he would say. Basically, it's kind of like, it's just a sliver of a moon, just like I said, like a bowl. And he says, well, yeah, it's going to rain. And I start, all these years, it's almost always accurate within a few days. And sure enough, last week, I think it was on the weekend, I look up and there it was, and it was bright out green. And I told my daughter, I said, it's going to rain. And it's too, and then sure enough, 3 days later is that storm. And then again today. So that's my only indication, not from the weatherman, but from my grandpa's old farming days, the moon trick. So
that's a farmer's almanac type of thing,
Yes. So
yeah, well, you got to believe the elderly when they say they know that the weather is changing. They either feel it in their joints, or they have some years of knowledge, right?
Yes, exactly. Well, I'd love to hear, with your background in NorCal, I'd love to hear some of those down the road, if those pop into your head, kind of what you've learned from your farm time.
That's actually a good segue. I don't know if you meant to do it or not, but I was talking to my cousin this weekend. I saw him, and this relates back to sports medicine, I promise you, but we were talking about environment, and he was talking about environment actually in regards to plants. So they grow a lot of stuff: blueberries, pistachios, grapes, olives. And he was telling me that they're growing some stuff that's contained like in a greenhouse. And so you can really control all the environment, and he's doing it to test different things. So you can really control and just have one variable, right? So you understand that from science and whatnot. But he was talking about his plants, his farming, and how when something goes wrong, like with the plant, like it gets sick or it's not producing, it's not yielding as much output as it should, that people usually look to the plant. Like, what's wrong with the plant? Let me look at the leaves. Let me look at this. He said, you know what I've learned, cuz? I've learned you got to look to the environment first. Because if the environment's messed up, then the plant's going to be messed up. So like, what is its environment, like,
Mm-hmm.
and so he named off all these different things like the humidity, the temperature, um, what is, uh, what's growing around it, what was in the soil before, like all these different things. And he said the second thing is to look to the soil. The third thing is then to look to the plant,
Yeah.
and I just thought about it and I thought that was so appropriate that it had a parallel to us as humans or athletes, in that, like, if you feel like you're not succeeding, and I thought of this because I had a high school athlete who was a little frustrated with his situation where he feels like he's should be playing and he's not. He's had some injury history, and I think it matters. If your mental is a little off, maybe look to your environment, is
Mm-hmm.
I guess what I'm saying, or if your physical is a little off, maybe look to your environment. And people always say, like, you're a product of the people you surround yourself with. That's essentially saying, what is your environment, right? And so I just thought there were a lot of parallels there with farming and like the environment of the plant and things like everyday life. And, if you're feeling stuck, like, what environment are you in? Who are you surrounding yourself with? People that are negative all the time, or people that kind of see that the glass is half full, maybe,
Yes.
Um, and then, he said, look to the soil second, like what are the nutrients? What is the saturation level of the soil? Like all these things. And it made me think of how people say, get to the root of the problem,
Mhm.
and the root to me is like, well, let me ask you, what is the root to you? If like the environment could be like the people you surround yourself with, what would be like getting into the soil? Is there a parallel there that you see?
I think for me, it would be your habits. That would be
Mm,
your root, right? So if the environment are things that, like you said, the people you surround yourself around, you can't control them, but you can respond or react to how they're responding, right?
hmm.
And then your habits would be more for me like the soil. What are you putting in the soil? What are you putting in uh, with your habits of diet? What are you putting in with your habits of exercise? What are you
Sure.
putting in with your habits of spirituality or meditation or faithful? What's your faith? Those
Hmm.
are the kind of habits that you would help nurture your environment, right?
Yeah.
Or that would supplement the things that would supplement, I guess. That would be the, yeah.
Yeah. I took
I
it.
was trying to
No.
think how you phrase that to bring it all together, but
Oh, I'm glad I asked you, because
mhm,
what came to mind to me was like, actually, athletically speaking, or human, as far as we go as people, is your nutrition, right? Like what are you actually eating and consuming and putting in your body that's kind of fueling your body? So I think of a plant and soil. The soil fuels the plant with
mhm.
nutrients so it could grow. I mean, it gets nutrients from the sun as well and from the air.
But
Uh,
from a basic standpoint, and
yeah.
that and I look at, and that's where I was going with that as habits, right? Because I took the habit, because your diet, your nutrition has to become a habit, right?
Yeah.
You it to Either way, just like they say, your thoughts, right? Good or bad, you're going to be right, right? Well, your diet, good or bad, you're going to be right. You're going to be
Sure.
affected either
Yeah.
way. So to your point, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I just had a long drive back to San Diego, and I was just thinking of what he was saying about, um, as a farmer, his outlook and the way that he looks at things is, like I said, to the environment first, and then the soil, and then the plant. And most people attack the plant. And I was just talking medically speaking as well, is, you have to get to the root of the issue and not just treat the symptoms, and so, um, yeah, we were just, wrapping it up a little bit and talking, and I was thinking on the long drive home, man, there's a lot of parallels there to, if you're struggling, maybe change the environment, or maybe look to what your intake is, whether that's, you know, what you're hearing, what you're seeing, what you're eating. That's all intake to me. And yeah, there's no particular point to it other than I thought it was interesting. There's a lot of parallels in that.
Yeah, good way to reflect. And they say you'll reap what you sow, right? So
There's another one.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It actually, how often do you get up to NorCal to see, friends up there?
Never.
Never, not enough, huh?
Nope. The farthest I get is Bakersfield.
Got you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
So unfortunate. Hopefully that'll change soon.
yeah, it could.
Let's take a
Um,
road trip.
let's take a road trip, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'd be fun.
Yeah. I'd love to stop at your hometown and then go see Johnny and then go see Maria's up there in Reading.
Yeah. It's, California has a lot of different climates and a lot of, it's all different towns up and down the state, and it's beautiful up there. It's nice,
Yeah.
It'd
Yeah.
be a fun road trip. We should try to plan that one of these days, maybe before next football season starts.
Well, so it's funny. So yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I was sitting in my office today. I was talking about the podcast, and somebody had mentioned. They said, "Well, can't you find somewhere in between?" And I was saying, "Well, we thought of Carlsbad. There's some
Mhm.
studios out there, and they're all, what a lot of people are doing in the podcast world, or some people are, they're purchasing Sprinter vans and
Oh,
putting
yeah.
a studio in the Sprinter van."
Sure,
And
sure.
so it's a mobile, and I'm like, okay. I
Yeah.
said, no, no, we'll just do that and just travel up and down the coast and do our podcast from the Sprinter van. Pete.
Man, we could just multitask in the LA traffic. We could
Yeah,
actually finish a whole podcast from going from one appointment to the other.
yeah, why not?
Be like, yo, Dustin, hop in here. I got a
Yeah,
14-mile, 90-minute commute. Let's knock
hmm,
out a hour
yeah,
long discussion about something.
yeah,
That'd be cool, dude. That's not a bad idea, actually.
yeah, right.
Yeah, let me ask you, how much of the NFL Combine did you catch this year, and have you seen it in years previous, and what do you think of it?
I didn't catch any. I just caught highlights.
Mhm.
In the past, I've watched a couple when I've been interested in some bigger names. I can't even think of who they might have been right now, but
Sure.
I remember watching, especially when around the time I was playing and knew some of the players maybe going through, or at one point I was treating a lot of. We were working with agents and trainers, and we would have combine guys come in, and I was part of their healthcare team getting ready for the combine.
Mhm.
So there was a time where for a few years that I was watching the combine scene where they'd end up, how they did, stuff like that. But nothing recently. And so I didn't get
Kind
to
of
see any.
exciting, isn't it?
It's a very exciting time. It's a man. It's very stressful for these guys.
Dude, let's talk
There's
about
so
that.
Oh my gosh. It's just an emotional roller coaster. I mean, even if you're at the top of your game and you're pretty much guaranteed going through that combine thing, you want to show out and present, because depending on how you do may or may not depend on where you land in that draft,
Yeah,
which equals a paycheck, right?
yeah,
And it could be tens of thousands of dollars difference, even more for some of
even
these
more. Yeah,
top guys, so they, even if they're like, oh, I know I'm going first round. Well, where in first round,
yeah,
and are you sure? Like, so but then you stress, and then you get sick. People get sick before people get injured. So it's just a roller coaster of emotion. They're just happy to be done, and
yeah.
so
Well, it's tough when it's all or nothing, and
yeah,
that's really like, and that's pressure in sports, and that's pressure if you're a performer musically or otherwise, and but it's a lot of pressure for someone who is just getting out of school.
yeah,
And I think that's what people forget. I was saying to somebody earlier today that people forget college. There's NCAA basketball going on right now. There's March Madness starting, and excuse me, big games this weekend, last weekend, and the coming weekend. And I was saying that people forget these are college kids. They're 18, 19, 20 years old. And I don't think people take a second and reflect that what they were like back then. It's yeah, so there's a lot of pressure. And if you're that age and you're at the combine, you have one chance to perform for many of these events. Like for the vertical, you have a few attempts, but 40-yard dash, like you have, you got to show out right then.
yeah,
And that could be a lot, even if you are a top person. I think it's a lot. I saw a couple people this year that really, man, under pressure just came out. I want to talk to you about a couple of them, but before I tell you about those guys, the combine in general, Dustin, have you ever made it out to Indianapolis?
I have not. No.
Because there is
I
that
yeah.
NFL trainers kind of symposium that happens every year, right? I thought maybe
Yep.
you'd been a part of that or not.
Yeah, and the NFL Chiropractic Association usually tries to have their big event at that time too, so they can
Right.
tie it all together with those trainers. It's a great meet and greet. We do it with the Hockey Society. It's a
Hmm.
great meet and greet. This year we teamed up with the baseball guys,
Nice.
but the football guys, do it every year out there. So that'd be a fun one to maybe we go podcast out. I think we talked about that at one
Yeah.
point. I can give them a call. They can maybe give us a booth out there, and we can just get interviews and maybe next year. We should put that
Yeah.
on the docket because that'd be just a couple phone calls. I bet they would be, generous enough to help us
Yeah,
out,
absolutely. I
even
know
if
we
we,
talked about it this time last year, and
yeah,
then, you know, things got a little bit hectic with our schedules, and it didn't happen. But I do want to make that a priority. One, I'd love to take the trip out there with you,
yeah,
and two, yeah, it'd be great to meet a few people and experience that.
yes,
Um, let me tell you about a dude who tore his ACL during the combine. And imagine that you're an O lineman. He's from USC, and his name is Andrew Vorhees, as I think how you pronounce his name. And because he tore his ACL, he's going to miss his rookie season in the NFL. I mean, that's tough. Now you're hoping you get drafted. You know you're going to fall because you're injured and you're not 100%. So a team that's picking you up is pretty much knowing that you're not going to help them in the year to come, right?
right.
Uh,
He's
Go ahead.
He's a big dude, 6'6", 330, I think I read.
Mm,
And I looked at him. He's a physical guy too. It's not a, blubbery guy. He came out, and I don't know if you saw it, but after he tore it, he decided that he was going to continue, and he finished his bench press and actually he was the highest rep
yeah,
guy in the whole combine.
that's
I don't know if
amazing,
you're
right?
going with that. Yeah, good for him, right? So that
Yeah,
just goes to show it's like, okay, I'm down and out. I'm out a year. That he was already told that. The doctors probably already told him and said, okay, well, let me show you what I can do and what you're missing out on and what I
sure.
promised to bring back. This is what I can do with the good parts right now, right?
And
So that's just a good reminder to all the youth out there. You don't give up. You still represent yourself.
you never know, right? You got to always, 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 always try to convert.
Yeah.
Always. Like,
Hmm.
even if you got one more chance, you got to take that. And
Right.
I would say even more than him setting the record at 38 bench presses is just the fact that he wanted to keep pushing on after the injury.
Yeah.
Like I said, your whole life rides on this. You've never been hurt, or you're rarely hurt, and then you blow your ACL. Nobody would be on his back if he said, "That's it, I'm out." Like,
Yep.
I'm
Nobody
going
thought
home.
so.
I'm out.
Yep. Nobody
And
even blinks an eye there. Okay, yeah, that's understandable.
no, as a coach, man, I want that guy.
Yeah.
Even if you're less talented, I want that guy because I think he's going to make everybody better.
Well, yeah, what you just said. He's a leader. He's
Yes.
setting an example. It's like, okay, we're down and out. Get on my back. Let's go.
Yeah.
We'll figure something out. And yeah, it's for him. It's icing on the cake at that point. That's why I tell my daughters all the time. Like you already proved yourself. Just you showing up, even if you threw up 10, right,
Yeah.
10 reps. It was just like, hey, you showed up and you
Yeah.
won already. So then for him to go out there and do that, it's pretty good. I think I
Great.
read 4 more than anybody else. So that's not just one more. Like that's a statement, especially when you're getting up that many reps, 225 at 38 reps.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Well, I'll also say, look, I have maxed out my bench many a times the last few months, and you're pushing with your legs. So that dude has a blown ACL.
Yeah,
I know he got another rep or two out because he was probably angry or mad, like, I just, my
yeah,
shot, I
yeah,
lost it. But he also probably could have got a couple more out maybe if he had a good leg, because
yeah,
that's your drive and,
yep,
your power. I'd say some of that comes from just being grounded,
yep.
at least for me. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. Even if you're trying to tell yourself you're not, because you try not to push or arch, you
Mhm.
try to be as static as possible. But yeah, you have to ground yourself, like you said. You have to deliver some force. It's that counter force, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Man, well, that's cool. I'm really curious to see where he ends up going,
Yeah,
what team ends up drafting him, which, by the way, half the guys in the league are undrafted. That's
yeah,
another thing that I don't know if people realize, is like not everyone's a first, second, third rounder who makes the teams. They're trying to
no,
sign these undrafted guys that are talented because there's a lot of talent. Um, but they can get them cheaper if you're undrafted, right? It's just
right.
economics, I guess.
That's
Uh,
what I learned a lot when I was working with Arena for all those years. I think I was almost 9, 10 years in
10
Arena
years
football.
almost. Yeah.
Yeah, and well, yeah, me and you, it's all because of you, P.
Well, we did it
You
together,
started that. Yeah. So 2000, we started in 2000, and I think I ended in 2009, 2010.
Yeah.
But one thing I learned about the quality of player that came through there were like a bunch of these guys, like there's, I think the list you sent me were there were like five, guys on that list that were notable people that
Yeah.
had to pull out due to injuries of some sort. Well, if and not even these guys, but all the undrafted guys that didn't get a shot or whatnot. They have to go somewhere, and they're all talented athletes. And
Yeah.
I just remember a lot of these guys all had NFL resumes. A lot of them had NFL resumes, and they got cut. At a certain week, maybe because they did roll an ankle or a
Sure.
hamstring, and they just weren't. They were on the bubble, so they got left. But their fork in the road, timeline, they could have been something. It just didn't go their way. But yeah, great talent in the Arena Football League. I hope it comes back. I know it's making its way back, kind of East Coast on, but hope we get some Southern California.
Yeah. I think it'd be fun if they brought it back,
Yeah.
I know they're starting USFL and spring football that's coming. I
Mhm.
think the XFL and USFL combined, and I don't know what their name is now. Do you by chance?
No, I don't. It's hard to keep up.
I thought it was called the Spring League, or
Yeah.
anyways. Yeah, I forgot where I was going with that. Other than uh, those guys,
So
it's
it's undrafted. You were talking about how many are
oh, that's right.
undrafted. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of talent. Is I guess basically what my point was, and even Canadian football. I think it was Ocho Cinco was saying that he was surprised when he left the NFL and he went to play Canadian football. He thought it was going to be easy and he was just going to crush everybody. And he
Yeah.
said, "Man, there's talent there." He's like, "These boys can play," and he was really kind of impressed. And I remember watching that interview of him. Um, yeah. So with the combine, there's one other guy. Did you hear about the dude who is the fastest guy in the NFL now?
I saw the video and but I didn't follow up, but I saw, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, 4.21 is what he got clocked in at. Xavier Worthy, he's Texas wide receiver. I happened to like watch it live, just coincidentally was watching TV and the combine was on. I was flipping through channels and my wife goes, "What is that?" And I said, "The NFL combine." And she's like, "That looks so cool." She's like, "Wait, are you change? Don't change the channel. Let me watch this."
Had a
And she was
girl.
like into the cone drills. She's like, "I want to do that." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" Like she thinks she's like a little athlete or something, like wants to do all the drills. And so we were watching it, and then the 40-yard dash came up, and they were saying, "Hey, this guy has a chance at breaking the record. He already ran a 4.22, I think, or a 4.23, and he doesn't have to do this attempt, but he said moments ago that he's going to take his last attempt because he wants to get the record. I think he had a 4.24 or something, if I remember. But so he didn't have to. Last attempt, boom, gets it. And I just thought that was impressive. It's like I'm really impressed with people who, when it's on the line and you have one shot, if you convert, sometimes people say that's lucky. I don't really believe in that. That's
Right.
preparation, and that's conversion, and that's visualization, and that's maybe a sprinkle of some good karma if you're a good person.
Yeah. Right.
So,
That's cool.
uh,
Yeah. Well, they say luck's preparation when preparation meets opportunity, right?
yeah, I guess that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So, yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, how exciting for that guy, man. He made it into the history books,
Yeah.
regardless of where he ends up right now.
Well, you want people to remember you, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I guess in life in general, like if you're not of not here on this earth. Hopefully you've done something to where people remember you. But in that moment for the NFL Combine, there's a few people like, Andrew Vorhees, sorry, the
Yep.
USC lineman. Like people will remember him for what he did overcoming that ACL injury and then breaking the bench press record.
Yep.
And same with Xavier Worthy, like the fastest guy in NFL history. I think John Ross used to have the record at 4.22.
Hmm.
And I'm not 100% sure, but I thought he was like a Cincinnati Bengal wide receiver for a little bit. But
Okay. Yeah. I can't
um, anyways, I made a note here, D. What at your best, your peak of athletic performance, what would you say was your vertical? And I know that's not your strong suit, maybe, but I'm just curious.
remember. My vertical. Oh my god.
And what would you say it is now? Those are the two questions.
Oh my gosh. I don't even know what my wingspan is. What is? Uh, um,
I won't put you on the spot. Let me ask you
to
this
be
then.
honest, I don't even think I've ever done one besides
Really?
like junior high.
Yeah.
Not for a true testing, just
Yeah.
goofing around. I don't even know. I don't know. We didn't do it in college. The lineman did.
Yeah. Yeah. You didn't
Um,
need to. It's probably dangerous for y'all. You can't have those big dudes coming down on those little skinny feet, break
yeah,
your Achilles.
they grounded.
Yeah.
So
Get close.
yeah.
Well, I was asking because I was looking at the combine records for the vertical, and it came up that the lowest vertical was in 2015, which I was kind of thinking the lowest vertical ever would have been like, I don't know, 20 years ago or something,
Mhm.
back in the olden days.
Yeah.
But it was 2015 and it was 17 and a half inches. That was the lowest ever recorded. Um,
Oh,
yeah. And you're like, that would be that would be a PR.
yeah, I was thinking like,
The highest recorded vert is 46 inches by Gerald. Looks like Sensabaugh. He was a Cowboys player back in the day, and he had 46 inches. So in comparison, I was trying to look up. I was thinking like the guy with the biggest vert would be like Randy Moss, which another source said Randy Moss had a 47 inch. That dude Gerald Sansabaugh had 46 inches. And then I looked at Michael Jordan. I was like, well, I wonder what Michael Jordan's is. Do you want to take a guess at what his is?
hmm. Um, no, maybe like 43,
48.
48. Wow.
At least that's what it was recorded on what I saw.
Yeah.
That's 4 feet.
Yeah. You put
That's
like that.
ridiculous, huh?
Yeah, that's not right. Well, you need to understand what the vert is too. You're jumping from flat foot.
Yeah, so
So,
Jordan's was a running jump.
okay. Jordan's was a running jump.
Yeah, that's what it said specifically.
Oh,
It said running jump vertical was
oh,
48 inches recorded.
still
So,
high, man.
well,
Still,
you're right though. That is different. Just being doing a standing, right?
yeah, but still 46. I mean, that's just
Yeah,
shy of four. And that's a standing vert.
right.
46, 47. That's getting up there.
Have you seen the vert testing plates, Dustin?
Yeah.
Have you used one or used it with a client ever? I've never
Um,
had experience with it.
I haven't personally. With the Olympic team, we had them, and I watched them. I was there when they were testing them and stuff.
And is that it's just measuring contact to contact?
Basically, the time lapsed. It's some kind of formula.
Hmm.
The ones we were using, or I think it was these ones. I've had a couple different places we've used them, but the one I remember is as soon as you leave, it picks up that sensor, and then when you come back, and then they convert it to what that would be in height or measurement.
Interesting.
Yeah, so
Well,
that way you could take away some of the variables.
hmm.
I don't
Yeah,
know because again, like with that vert, you're reaching up and you're kind of leaning to one side and trying to hit
yeah.
the pegs. And so I don't know if they said, okay, well, let's take that part out and just go two hand, so I don't know how the equation and which one's more accurate or whatnot. But
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I'd like to use one of those at some point and learn more about it. Power plate? No, that's not it. What is it called? Do you know?
I want to say it was a force plate, I think,
Force plate.
or yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's what it was called.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, they're cool. Technology's cool that way. Um, yeah, it's cool, especially with like the Olympic guys. I remember they had the sports medicine team and the whole strength and conditioning coaches. They had this computer set up. They had sensors, just like you see in labs, right? And the
Mhm.
data points that they were able to see live time, it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was fun to kind of geek out on and just kind of stand back and watch them work like that.
Yeah. What have you seen some of the analytics during the NFL season because they have chips in the jerseys or in the shoulder pads? So it'll
Yeah,
show like player speed or distance the ball was thrown. Even like weird analytics like completion probability,
yeah,
which I'm not quite sure how they're doing that, but it's interesting.
yeah. It is getting yeah, getting more and more data points saved up.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, Tell me about patience this week, man. Or
Real quick, let me talk about. I don't know if you saw this one on the NFL thing, but just curious what your thoughts are on this because it was kind of Richard Gurage, I don't know, a Guraji or something, O line from Florida.
Mhm.
Did you? I don't know if you read anything about that, but
Yeah.
he basically woke up the next morning with an ankle issue
Oh shoot.
and blamed and said he could not participate in the combine because of the what they call it after a pain he woke up with ankle pain sustained from a pain tolerance test that they had performed on him the day before. So him and
I
his
thought they say
people.
that they don't do that, or that what's a pain tolerance test? What is
Right,
it?
there is no pain tolerance test. So basically, what the NFL came out and said after that was reported, saying, you know what, we're going to be reviewing this because there's no such thing in our exam as a pain tolerance test. So we don't know what you're talking about. Basically, what
Hmm.
we do is a normal physical exam prior. So the
Ankle
only
cushion and
yeah,
stuff.
joint lobes, active, passive, resisted. So
Hmm.
the only thing I could think of is they're asking them, does this hurt? Does this hurt? Do you have any pain with this? Tell me when you start to have any kind of discomfort.
Sure.
So I can easily see how the verbiage might be misinterpreted, but this isn't the first time this guy's done this,
Oh,
type of exam. So, no, I'm saying I
oh,
don't, exams, right? I mean, it's the
yeah,
first thing in college you get those done orthopedically. Like you've gone through a million of these, and by the time you get to the combine, you've already been assessed many times typically.
sure.
So it's just kind of fishy, and that's what the NFL is saying. They're putting it under review, so they're
Hmm.
just saying, you know what are you trying to get at? Are you trying to just get out? I don't know. They're not saying this. This is me speculating, but like what happens to you? You wake up or something goes on where you call your agent up and say, "Listen, I can't go today."
Yeah.
Well, what are we going to tell them? Like this is just me speculating again. But you have to kind of wonder. You put yourself out there like this. You have to start now because you're not telling us what's going on. We have to now assume things, and anytime we're assuming things, that can go in many directions. That's never a good thing. You got to be clear, and that's what I told my kids all the time. Don't be so vague that you have to leave the interpretation up to the other person. You have to be clear and concise, because if not, then
Yeah.
however they want to interpret, that's because you didn't tell them the full truth. And so this is a perfect example. Now this guy's already, you know can you imagine a team going, okay, yeah, we're going to pay you all this money, but man, your character, maybe you're this kind of guy that gets out of practice, get out of meetings, get out of this because you come over hungover, or whatever. I don't know. Again, I don't know this guy. I don't know the case, but it's just a talking point, right?
No, you're right. I think it's man. I almost want to send that clip to somebody in my life these days. I have, I have. How should I articulate this? Yes, I think with the ankle thing, getting back to the player, it it can only be a couple of things. Either he really tweaked it during some process during the combine, or I do sometimes ask when I'm doing stuff, is there any pain or discomfort? That's not a pain test. That's like
Yeah, it's
give me
total.
some feedback.
Yeah.
And you know what? You're right about he's done this a lot of times, in the sense that he's had these exams many times, all through your professional, collegiate, high school, amateur, all of those
Yeah.
times, and multiple times every year you got to go through it. So yeah, I mean, maybe something wasn't sore and he woke up with some soreness or some stiffness and didn't want to go, giving him the benefit of the doubt. Then you have
Yeah.
to, it just, something sounds a little off there, right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
And yeah, I feel bad for the kid, because if you don't feel 100%, you're like, I know I'm not going to be able to perform up to the level that I want to, or that I could if I was 100%. But dang, I mean, the combine's different, but I was going to say, that's sports, right?
Yeah.
Like week 16, no one's feeling 100%, and week one, maybe when they are closest to 100%, they're probably a little rusty. So it's like, there's a balance there too.
Yeah.
And man, poor dude, that sucks. I don't know what happened there, but there's a few guys I'd like to kind of keep an eye on. And
Yeah.
I guess since that was a story, he might be one of them as well.
Yeah, well, like you said, give him the benefit of the doubt. I hope it's just one of those things. I can easily see it too. He wakes up and he's telling his agent, and they're trying to figure out what to do, and that could be an easily misunderstood test too. And then maybe he asked about it. Could this be from my exam? And
Yeah.
then the reporter takes it from that. So got to
The,
give the kid a benefit of the doubt. Obviously, he's there for a reason, wants to do well. You're not trying to
yeah.
get out of it.
Well, I think the clarity is clarity in conversation is important, and that could be between an athlete and a coach. That's, it could be between, your communication between teammates, right? Like you could
Yeah.
mess the play up because you thought this, thought that. So yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot lately, just in business and with patients and with friends and with family. Is what I'm saying and what I mean to say, is that how it's being accepted and interpreted,
Right.
And vice versa is, hey, you said this. Is this what you mean? I'm checking in a lot more with, like, that's how I heard it. That's what I'm pretty sure you meant. But sometimes that's not what people meant, And so,
Right.
uh, yeah, especially these days where we communicate a lot, like via text or email sometimes, and not face to face, where I think body language and experience kind of sets in too.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody today about that, and I was saying, you know what? Because we were going through some stuff, and I had said one thing, and then they came back and did something else, and I said, and I got to be careful how I phrase it, right? I don't want to be like, I want to be
Abrasive.
like, didn't you hear what I said? Like,
Yeah.
but I don't want to talk down on anybody. But in my head was like, and so I even told him at the end, I said, you know what? I have a tendency to over communicate in situations like this because I really don't like redos. We only have so much time energy in the day to get things done, and so a lot of times I'll over communicate. It doesn't mean anything, but I just want to make sure we're on the same page. So if you
Yeah.
hear me repeat stuff or you hear me, it has nothing to do with me not paying attention. I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Are you okay with that? Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I said okay. So what the hell were you thinking
Well,
then?
right. Well, I like how you put that, though. Man, there's been a few instances in the last couple weeks where, uh, the way you communicate uh, is just as important as what you say, right? And look, that matters if you're a quarterback and you're trying to talk to your receiver, or you're trying to talk to a ref, or trying to talk to your coach. It matters in business. It matters in a lot of things, And so I like how you articulated that, because it wasn't abrasive. It wasn't um, something that was going to be off-putting to somebody. They can really see that you're being genuine about it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's important. You're right. It's limited time with patients, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
I had somebody today who started the session off with a story, and we were just standing talking, and I'm like, "Hey, dude, let's start with you seated. Let's work and talk, because we have 30 minutes." Like, I was back to back to back today, and I said, like, his treatments is like 34 minutes, and we book a 30-minute session, so we're already like a -4 kind of, And I said that, I was like, let's work and talk. Like, time's a wasting, you know, I don't want to like waste your time. You got to go. Like, that probably happens to you often, huh?
You know what happened to me today twice, but
Yeah.
towards the end of the day, I had two brothers in baseball players, and they got in last minute. I said, "Yeah, get your butts in here." You know,
Yeah.
they're college guys, and so, get
Yeah.
your butts in here. So first one's in there, and I didn't know the other brother was in the waiting room, and
Sure.
this guy tells me what's going on with his elbow, and I scheduled him for a 15-minute just, hey, come in, because they come in for tune-ups between
Sure.
games or whatever.
Sure.
So I said, and he goes into this whole thing about his forearm, his arm, and all this. I'm like in my head going, okay. So I said, okay, great, let's get going. He's all, whoa, my back too, and then my right hip, and then and so I just like a visceral. I'm all,
Yeah.
bro. I said, bro. I said, you're killing me. I said,
Yeah.
we literally only have this much time, and you're
Yeah.
giving me this laundry list of things. You know, I'm joking with him, and
Sure.
and so I'm like, you stay here. And I walked out, and I went to go get something. His brother's out there, and I'm like, I said it loud enough. I'm all, man, can you believe this guy's country clubbing on me? He's just going over. And his brother's like giving him shit from the other, and so then he's cracking up, and so we had fun with it. But it was my way of saying like, okay, when I come back in, you get on the table. We got some work to do. I always
Yeah.
tell people, I said, listen, I said, I do this for a living. I said, a lot of times when I'm in the arena, we only have literally, I'm on the clock 5 minutes to do a
Sure.
full workup, treatment, everything. So I can do it within minutes. I said, but usually I want to talk and get to know, what's going on. I said, but here's the deal. If we ever get pressed for time, I said, I will never rush our treatment. I'll rush the talking. We won't talk at all. I said,
Yeah.
but I'll never compromise on our treatment. Even if it feels like it's a 2-minute session, the
Yeah.
treatment will not be compromised. So my patients do know that. Like if they're running late, I'll say, get your butt in here. Like they'll text me, oh, I'm 10 minutes late for a 15-minute appointment. I'm like,
Sure.
I said, no problem. I said, less talking, more treatment. Just when
Yeah.
you get in here, I'll have the paper ready, face down, tell me if there's anything new, but let's
Yeah.
get going. So, but
Well,
yeah,
again, that's good communication, dude.
yeah,
That's, you know, I
set the
don't
tone,
know why
right?
I've been so introspective about it, you know, but I've been noticing other people who really do a good job at breaking things down and communicating, not just, you know, even at a restaurant a couple of nights ago, somebody was just on it, you know, and I was like, give that person a raise. Like they are handling biz right now, you know?
Yeah,
So I don't know
yeah.
what that is that I'm noticing those things, but you know, I'll take it for what it is. I guess maybe I need to let some of that rub off.
It's definitely an art and a skill, and it needs to be practiced. I've
Yeah.
over the years listened to a lot of podcasts, a lot of mentors. They were saying that the most successful people typically are, the best communicators, and regardless of your skill set, you know, you don't have to be the biggest, fastest, strongest, but if you're well educated or a good communicator and have the gift of gab, you will typically be more successful. So it's just kind of something. It's like, oh man, I don't like talking, but I've got to figure this out, right?
Right.
So get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
But one of the things my dad taught me at public speaking that I learned early on, which my dad used to, he ran a multi-million-dollar company in the sporting goods industry, and
Mhm.
he was in the industry. He would get up and speak to hundreds of thousands, hundreds of people, whatever, big conventions and stuff. I'm probably dumbing that down, more like thousands or something.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyways, so he taught me early on is like, you just got to remember, when you get asked to talk or speak, you know more about that particular topic than anybody else out there. So just go up there, have a confidence, and basically you do the who's, what, where, why, and when, and just knock it down. And as long as you can get your point across and clearly and concisely, you're ahead of the game, because you know more about it than them. They're coming there to listen to you,
Yeah.
not the other way around. So, because a lot
Yeah.
of times people could get in their head, me included, when I first started, is like, oh man, somebody's going to be out there questioning everything I do, and and then you start getting in your head, is this right? One thing I learned from one of the oh man, I forget who was the speaker, but they basically said, oh man, I'm going to butcher it, but it's basically, you don't have to promise them, like when you get up to speak or when you're talking with somebody, you don't have to say this is how it is. You
Yeah.
basically say, I'm basically saying it's 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 like that, so you're not saying this is factual, right? It's just my opinion, and these are my words. Yeah. So anyways, I don't know
Yeah.
where I was going with that, but
Sounds like it. it's more like it's true to you. Like that might not be true for everybody, but this is my experience. This is true to me. This is
Yeah, take it for what it's worth. But I have something to talk about, and yeah. So I'll try to find that, and I'll share it with you at some point. It's
yeah.
good. It's a good reminder.
When I first started teaching, when I was waiting to get licensed, I taught out of college, and my first class I taught was anatomy and physiology, and I felt super comfortable with that class. Like taken many years of anatomy and phys, so all the many high school, grad school, chiropractic school, and so that's my wheelhouse. The second class, the next quarter or whatever, I taught was supposed to be anatomy phys again. The day I showed up to teach, so I'd made like this is my second go round, so now I have like day by day plans. I have it all marked out. I'm like ready to G it, and
Yeah,
I
game
show
plan.
up, and the dean comes up to me and is like frantic, like, we don't have this instructor, blah, 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 blah. This one person can teach anatomy, but they've never taught this. Can you step in to teach this respiratory therapy course that was like cardiopulmonary something or rather, but it had to do with, actually, I do remember what it was. It was like the math lab values for
Oh man,
respiratory therapists,
I remember. Yeah.
And bro, I had to jump into that, and I really had like imposter syndrome because I'm like, like I haven't even prepped this class really.
Yeah.
And and then I remember walking up there and thinking, my second thought was, okay, even on these are non-college graduates or college students, and so I might not know it all, but at least for today, I know more than they do. And let me just start by teaching them what I know. And then I had a day to prepare for the next day, and then finally eventually did it. But that was kind of along the lines of what your dad said is, it helps you when you remember that you're up there teaching for a reason, or you're up there speaking for a reason. They asked you to, or you have the experience, and
Mhm.
you got to get out of your way. It's just, it's part of it, I guess.
Yeah. So true in sports too, right? When the coach calls on you, it's for a reason, right?
Right.
More than likely, it's for a reason, and a lot of times you win or lose based on what you tell yourself. So,
Yeah.
and like you just said, get out of your own way. If you just allow your ability to shine and do what you've been doing, all these reps that got the coach's attention to begin with, and to trust you in that position, you're going to be fine.
Yep.
Don't try to be anything other than what they want you to be. And whether you succeed or not, that's not the point. It's obviously they want you to produce, but the goal is to go up there and give them your best opportunity of what they already know you can do.
Yeah. No, exactly. Sometimes coaches see in athletes things that the athletes don't see themselves, especially if you're talking about youth sports like high school, even college level.
Mhm.
Um, you know, some of the best feedback I got was from some of my high school athletes that there was times where I said, I don't care what the result of this is. I want you just to go and, for this example, it was a quarterback, like just go out there and let it rip. If you see it, let it rip. If it turns out to be an interception or an incomplete pass, it's okay. But what I don't want is for you to triple pump and then get sacked. Like let's trust him, and let's trust yourself, and like let's go, and there's no expectations. And I remember him coming back and being like, if you didn't care, then like it freed me up.
Yeah.
And I remember that dawning on me, like, oh man, like I really have to watch what I say to these kids, because they take it to heart, right? So
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Do you know who the Savannah Bananas are? If you followed any of that?
no.
So it's basically like in the baseball world, it's like the Harlem Globetrotters of baseball. They
Okay.
go around city to city playing, and it used to start off with they were just like a sideshow. They would go and play. It's a great story. It's on Amazon, I think, or Netflix. Go ahead and look them up, but they're still active. But their quality of ball is unbelievable. But they bring a fun part to
Nice.
the game. Well, there was a post this last week, like they'll do like this guy will like they'll have a rodeo clown pitching, and
Mhm.
but he's legit pitcher and he's a rodeo clown, and he will smoke the ball, but he'll do all these weird tricks with his garb on and then throw a strike, and then the batter might be on stilts, and then he'll have to, or went up with a flaming bat. You might have seen that,
Sure.
so they do all these kinds of, but one of the highlights recently was, or whatever, it was posted, the center fielder did a backflip and caught the ball
Oh
from
my
a guy
goodness.
hit.
Yeah.
So it's like the guy that was doing the TikTok or whatever said he stopped it. He's a coach, and he's all, why do you think this was successful? And it had, the whole point was, the whole premises of Savannah Bananas is to go out and have fun. There's really no real rules. You can't fail.
Sure.
You go be as goofy as possible and see what you can do. So
Right.
he's like, that guy's probably done that backflip a million times and failed a million times, but who cares? It was,
Sure.
and everybody clapped when he tried, right? It had
Sure.
nothing to do with whether he got it or not. It's for all the attempts that when he finally did catch it, everybody went crazy because he got it, and so he's all, just think if we started that with youth and went out there and said, we don't care, just like you just said, to
Yeah.
your point, like if you could not fail and just go out and have fun and play like we used to play pickup games,
Yeah.
the games, these youth sports, we all know it would happen, but nobody wants to take the chance. There
Yeah.
needs to be a youth Savannah Banana program where everybody goes out there and has fun and lets these kids just develop naturally. But
Yeah, it's
yeah,
like gambling with house money. You don't feel as
yep,
tight. Somebody
yep,
gives you $100 and is like, "Here, go gamble." You're like, 20
love it.
bucks a hand, 50 bucks a hand. I'm going all in on black. Like it's not, you're loose
Yep,
with it. So
that's so true. Good analogy.
yeah. um, I wanted to ask you if you had any patient cases in the last week that were interesting, because I had one that I wanted to bring up with you before we get off for the day. I just want to have a discussion with you, but I know you're always seeing everything from A to Z as well.
Yeah, darn it. I had a couple. I got to do a better job writing them down as they come up. I know we've talked about that.
It's tough. I always like make mental notes during the
Man,
day, and then you flip to the next patient, you
yeah.
flip to the next patient, and then yeah, it's hard to recall at the end of the day or at the end of the week for sure. I turn the page quick.
I had, so real quick, from one of our, I think it was our last episode or 2 episodes ago, we were talking about that gut feeling, and just when we were talking about the Ehlers-Danlos condition you had, and you're
Yeah.
like, just not feeling right, and good thing you didn't adjust. Well, I had one this week, professional dancer, pro am. She comes in. I hadn't seen her. She'd been in Europe. She just got back. Saw her. Haven't seen her for a while. She was talking. She came in for something unrelated to what she came in months before. She
Hmm.
was coming in with some neck and shoulder issues she had never had. Well, and we've palpated millions of muscles. Like, I mean, how many muscles and different body
Yeah,
types have we feel? So I'm pretty comfortable knowing what feels normal and what doesn't.
sure.
I I wish I could have told you. Like, so I put my hands on her trap. She's facing away from me. I put my hands on her trap, and I'm like at the supraspinatus, deep to the trap,
Hmm.
and there's this hard bone that's sticking straight up out of it that feels like it's part of like an angel wing trying to pop out. Right,
Part of
the
her.
other side, yeah, right above, like right back of her. So not on the collarbone side, not on the first rib. It was back by the scap, and the other side, nothing, just muscle the way it should feel. And I, I didn't want to like scare her or talk to her about, what is this? Like, oh my gosh. But
Sure.
at one point, I'm like, I started laughing kind of, and she's all, what's going on? I'm like, I
This
said, I
is
gotta be
crazy.
honest, this is not, I said it kind of like this. I said, not to alarm you, but this, what I'm feeling right here is not normal. Like, I can knock on it almost. Like,
Yeah.
I said, what the heck's going on? She's like, I don't know. That's what I'm talking about. And I said, okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to bounce you out because you're really rotated. I said, but if we're not seeing some changes, we need to get a picture of this because I want to know what it is.
Yeah.
Like, because I once,
Curiosity.
yeah, I once had an X-ray of my shoulder. I had a lot of shoulder pain, and they took a picture of my AC joint, and I didn't even know, but I had this cauliflower like growth coming off my AC joint.
Damn.
Never knew it, never felt it, couldn't see it, but it was on X-ray, and we were both like, he sent it out to oncology because he didn't
Yeah.
know what it was.
Sure.
So it was just from a lot of banging on my shoulder.
Hmm.
But so in my head, I'm like, who knows? That she used to be an equestrian rider. She could have had a fall or something. I just never, because I always did her low back and knees. So, anyways, I said, let's adjust. Let's see what's going on. But I'm not going to adjust this. I'm not going to try to adjust your first rib, your neck, or anything like this. But I am going to treat around it. I'm going to get this scap mobilized and get it moving. So next time she comes in, it's gone. Okay. But both sides, I can now feel the edges of it. So basically, what it was is her scap was rocked forward all the way up, and part of that protuberance was part of that the
Inferior
back part.
spine.
Yes, the inferior spine. You know that little hook area on the
Yep.
back. That's
Yep.
exactly what it was. And
Wow.
but it just goes to show, like, and that's what I thought it was in my head. And that's why I told her, I said, we're going to get it to rock back. But I've never seen one that. So, but in my gut, I'm like, oh, this is not, you know,
Something feels off.
I've never seen this. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm glad it went back and everything was bilaterally equal. And it was just good reminder is that sometimes, because I get that with the ankles a lot, people come in and like, look at how swollen it is, look at how bad it is. And then I say, okay, well, look at when I move your foot like this, and now the swelling's gone, right? Well, it had nothing, it wasn't swollen. It was basically raised up and everything was pushing up.
Yeah.
So, can't just go on visual all the time.
Can't go on visual all the time. I had a newish doc a year out of school, and she's in a multidisciplinary practice, and she was saying, I really thought I was going to get out of school and it was going to be 80% like my neck is sore, my back is sore, and she's like, I'm seeing everything under the sun, and it's like a little overwhelming. Like, how do I become an expert at everything? And well, I'm curious what your advice would be. I just said, really, I would start by just learning what normal is, and then anything that's deviated off of that, even if you don't know what it is, that it's not right, and then you can then go look it up. And you know how many times in my first 10 years, even today, I might say, I don't know. Those 3 words I feel like doctors don't say enough,
Yeah.
It's like you're not an expert in everything,
No.
and also just don't quit hammering because you have a hammer, like if your specialty is whatever, it's like that's not the only solution to everything, And so I remember being overwhelmed by that and just thinking, okay, I'm gonna just know what normal is for almost everything, and then if something is off of that, I'm gonna have to learn what that is, or at least know that that's a pause and not a go past go collect $200 situation,
I think that's great advice. Yeah, if we can. Yeah, I'm sure during all your teachings you would tell your students that. I've never really heard it like that, and I like that because that's kind of like that. Go, it control what we can control type idea, right? Know
Sure.
what we know, get good at knowing what we know, and then figure it out as we go type thing. I still today, like, if I don't can't remember something or something doesn't, I'll look it up, and that's how I
Right.
learn. I'm
100%.
constantly looking things up, even words I don't know. I'll
Yeah.
look it up and then I'll try to use them and try to figure it out. But it's how we continue to grow. I like when that's why I tell my patients, I said, if I don't know the answer, please bring it to me. Cause like,
Yeah.
I want to learn. Like, I get
Totally.
excited when I come across something that, I don't really know, or,
Yeah. I do one of 3 things usually with patients. Either I'm like, hey, I'm not really quite sure. Let me ask somebody about that. And sometimes I reference you, and sometimes I,
mhm.
look it up or whatever. And I'll say, next time you come in, remind me about that and let's talk about it. Or I'll be like, why don't the both of us look that up and see what you find? I'll see what I find. Let's have a discussion about it when you come in. Um, and, most of the time we remember to do that. And most of the time, one of the two of us or both of us learn something. Today I was asking questions. I didn't even realize this person was in the medical field, and they're in like medical robotics. And I
Mhm.
said, man, I have a patient who is having some health issues. And so we got into a discussion, and I said, they have to have a lung biopsy. That's an interesting procedure. Like how would they go about that exactly, And she's like, oh, let me tell you, there's like a new robotic type of way you can do it, and you can go in through the mouth through this ionto something is what it's called. I wrote it down, and it is super non-invasive. And she's like, what's even cooler is that it can get the periphery of the lungs and really get more information than if they normally biopsied it. So I didn't even know that existed. I was just really asking, like, how do you biopsy a lung without aspirating it? Like, what would you do? And she's like, I'm going to send you some information. Where are they? I told them Northern California. And she's like, I'm going to email you. And they should go ask to get this done because it'll yield way more information and it's way more comfortable and less invasive.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to forward that information along. I didn't expect to learn that today, right?
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. I never knew. That seems so out of my comfort zone, obviously.
Yeah,
That kind of creepy.
a little bit. Yeah, hopefully that's not something we ever have to find out about. But
Yeah.
I think it'll bring this patient a little bit of peace to know that it's going to yield what they need, which is information.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you one quick question before I, let us go. And it's about sacroiliitis. In other words, either pain in the sacral region or inflammation of the sacrum or the, SI joint, specifically speaking, I suppose. We see that a lot. I'm sure you've seen it many, many, many a times. I have a little bit of a weird, different case than I've seen normally in that the sacrum is very, the base is super anterior. So instead of being vertical, it like is presenting like this almost. And we saw that on x-ray. He had a scan done, which I thought was interesting, a whole body scan. And it showed such a clear, distinct picture of this like whiteness right over the SI joints. Like somebody took a paintball and threw it. And so I hadn't seen like sclerosing like that in a long time in the
Is that
SI
on
joint.
X-ray or MRI? I missed that.
It was on a scan. He got like a whole body scan,
Oh, yeah.
which is I'm going to look to get that done myself this summer. It looks just the app that it was affiliated with was really cool. How you could click through it and everything. But so we've had moderate success with it. But how do you usually treat that other than just adjusting the pelvis or adjusting the SI joint? Do you use activator, drop table? Do you use any modalities? What's your timeline on that? And then I'll share what I kind of thought afterwards.
There's several. So there's typical. So sacroiliitis, like you said, it's kind of low because we see segmental dysfunction all the time between the sacrum or the ilium. Rarely. I don't know if I've had too many cases where I've had a diagnostic on X-ray where the SI joints were so sclerotic or they were having chronic issues in that area that we're not resolving from some care. But one big thing is that if it is sclerotic, I have to try to go. Let me take a step backwards. Anytime somebody comes with a pain, like we've talked about before, we want to go, is it anatomical in nature? Is it mechanical or is it systemic in nature, right? So I kind of go through my checklist because I want to know, why is that joint inflamed like it is? Is
Sure.
it because something's sclerotic in there? Is it because something is irritated? Was there some trauma that occurred to the tissues or the bone? Or is it mechanical in nature where that SI joint is fixated due to some mechanical issues, repetition, sustained posture, some kind of tweak? Or is it systemic in nature, like an arthritic type case, like AS, psoriatic arthritis? There's a bunch of different arthritic, arthritic type cases that could actually cause those areas to fuse up. So that's what we kind of want to know. As far as treatment goes, once I know which kind of case it is, typically, like if it's really acute, like the one you're talking about, I would use more like the drop table, get that joint to kind of like your idea of knocking off the rust. I like using the drop table, let the body in motion stay in motion or continue in motion, use that drop table to allow those joints to settle in like that without
Right.
putting them at a shearing position.
Sure.
The activator is good, especially when they're really hot and acute. But most times, working the soft tissue around to decompress the area works well.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered you. Was that the X-ray you sent over to me? You basically said, "Have you ever seen anything like this?" And
Oh,
I don't know if it was the coccyx I was looking at or the sacrum, but it was really. Like,
That was a different case too. That was
oh,
interesting because
I
that
was like,
person
no, I've never seen that.
that
Like,
person had SI joint pain too, like lumbar pain that was non-resolving, had sciatica, and we took a couple films and nothing showed up on it unusual other than some compression. He had an MRI. The MRI was lumbar spine, showed a disc. Wasn't a crazy disc,
yeah,
we've seen other discs like that we can resolve. And then I was like, man, maybe ask for another MRI. I know they've done one already and you had one like a year ago, but maybe go lower, like we're getting lumbar. Like I want to see sacrum coccyx. I want to see, like, let's go lower, I want to see your femoral heads. Right.
yeah.
And they took another film, and that x-ray that I showed you was a picture of an MRI scan, actually, is the
Oh,
imaging. And it was cockeyed like this because right there in the colon, he had a tumor growing.
oh, I didn't even look at that closely.
And it was the size of like a baseball. And it was so big that it was pushing his sacrum from vertical to horizontal. Not
Gee,
horizontal,
yeah, but
but
I know.
like, you
Yeah,
know, the base was way anterior. And that was the pressure he was feeling. And it got so big that he was getting sciatic pain. And so it was such a weird case. And then, dude, like, kind of makes you trip out a little bit,
yeah,
you're like, man, that's like such an unusual thing. Like, what if we didn't catch that,
yeah. Good for you, man. But
Well, it was a little bit of just luck, to be honest,
well,
but it just,
well,
that those types of things trip me out in practice, where I'm
yeah,
like, dude, we've been doing this 20 years, and knock on wood, we've been pretty lucky with
yeah.
outcomes.
But yeah, there you go with the luck again. But that's preparation, right? All the years of something told you, hey, you went down the laundry list. Okay, we've taken film of the back. We know this. We know what's going on. It's not adding up, right?
Right.
And so all the preparation of all the years of you doing it, and then you had the opportunity to say, hey, let's get a picture a little lower. This isn't adding up, and
Yeah.
you know, so good on you, man. Because yeah, I mean, now that guy's got some explanation of why treatments aren't typically working, why he's having so much discomfort. And yeah, that looked gnarly.
The
Uh,
body's complex. It's
yeah,
that's why I I always trip out on people who think that they medical specialties that think that they have all the answers, or that they're really closed off to other types of methods, whether it's acupuncture or nutrition or exercise, things like that. I'm always like kind of reading up on new studies or different things that came out. This morning, I read there was a new, I won't even call it a study. I hesitate to call it a study. The news was that activating your muscles and contracting your muscles, they found, is good for your body chemistry, your hormones, your dopamine, your mood. And not only that, Dustin, but contracting your muscles, aka exercise or just moving, is good for the overall health. And that if you do that, you'll be able to continue to move for years to come.
oh man, alert the press.
Dude, I was just like, what's going on that's breaking medical news? What are we doing right now?
Yeah, right. Where did we go wrong? Oh
So,
man. Well, thank you for letting our audience know that how the importance of movement is.
dude, yeah. Well, I guess it's good. It's getting out to more people, and I think
Yeah.
that's what's important.
Well, I mean, we've talked about this before. The things like that we think like how many times, I mean, it doesn't happen too often, but like I think last week somebody came up and told me that, hey, did you know that sugar causes inflammation in your body? And I'm like, man, like
Yeah,
it's like day one I talked to you about
yeah,
cutting that crap out, but they needed to hear it. They're like, yeah, but once I started cutting out, I felt so much better.
right, right.
Well, I'm glad, like I'm glad somebody got through to you, but it's just amazing. It's like, or somebody recently told me it was like breaking news to them about, I don't know what it was, but it was like so like standard in our mind. I
Hmm.
wish I could remember. I just totally but they were just amazed how like they had never heard it before.
Well, it just makes me feel like that the bar is really low for Americans to know about what real health is. It's
Yeah.
like, I don't know if it's been purposely dumbed down or if it's just something that's not taught, or maybe it's not interesting, or maybe we've just been trained to not deal with something till it's a problem versus thinking about things with some foresight. Maybe that's why people don't have, like, more than $500 saved or something. Is like, you're
Yeah.
not thinking when you're younger, like, hey, let me stack $50 a week or something,
Yeah.
It's just not, it's not taught. We're very reactive,
Yes.
So, um, anything else on your mind for this week, bud?
Nope. I think that's good.
Thank
Another week
goodness.
down. Yeah.
No, I only say that because I thought you were going to bring something up that I'm not ready to talk about yet, and we'll sign
No.
off here. We'll talk
Yeah.
about it next week.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. We'll save that one. We'll table that one.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I, well, I think your boy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah.
So,
It's crazy how the world changes so quickly in the NFL or with sports or
dude,
just in general,
dude, when you sent me that text, because I hadn't heard it, my heart sunk for you. Because I mean, it's just not what you're thinking is going to happen, and
Right.
then it does, and you're like, that's not my blueprint. Like I
Yeah.
had just because you have in your head how it's going to go, right? The next few years, and you want to be there for him, and
Yeah.
yeah,
We were talking about Keenan Allen. He got traded to the Bears. I'll keep it 30 seconds or less. I just didn't ever think he'd be traded, especially he coming off his best year in receptions, set a franchise record, second most yards in his career. And I just thought he'd retire a Charger,
yeah, me
He
too.
has some team records, and, one of the few guys who's been a San Diego Charger and an LA Charger and a Carson Charger, for that matter, for the years that we played in the soccer stadium. And that's sports, man. It sucks when one of your favorite players gets traded to another team, but I've always said I'm more of a fan of the man than I am of the jersey.
Yeah, yep,
I follow my guys wherever they go, or people that I admire and like. Not even people that I might have some relationship with, and that's pro sports. It's what
yep.
it is, I guess.
Part of the
We'll,
business.
we'll talk more about it, man. It was a little bit of a stinger. You're like the first person I text after my cousins were blowing me up.
Yeah.
What? And I'm like, I can't deal with your shit right now. I'm like going into, yeah, anyways. I'll tell you what, people who are successful anywhere.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
he'll be
And
just fine.
he's a dude, you can drop him in anywhere and he's going to do what he does, which is shake up cornerbacks and catch a lot of balls. And so I'm happy for a change of pace for him, but I'm sad he won't be in the backyard,
Yeah, for sure. But
That's what it is.
yep, part of the game.
All right, man. Well, let's catch up in a few days, bud. And I know next week is your mom's birthday, you mentioned, right?
Yes, sir. So we
Happy
will not
birthday to
be.
Mama Glass.
Yeah, there you go. They listen religiously. So
Nice. Well, they did a good job of raising a strong, smart son and a good friend at that, too. So what are you guys doing? Are you having a little bit of cake? You guys getting together?
yeah, we usually get together. So yeah, we'll treat her right and yeah, figure something out.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, let's
Yep.
figure out another day to podcast. We usually do it Mondays. Let's do it before, day after, whatever works for you. We'll talk during the week. Everyone who's listening, we appreciate you. We got a couple messages this week. I didn't forget about you. We'll answer those questions next week. And thank you for the time. Tell a friend if you enjoyed today. We'll be back with you in a few days. This is The Second Opinion. We're a sports medicine podcast. I'm Dr. Dokel.
I'm Dr. Glass.
And we'll catch up with you soon. Dustin, have a good week. Be safe. And I'll talk to you soon, bud.
Sounds good, buddy.